Hi guys, it's Miss Dixon coming back to you with our next math lesson. I hope everyone is doing well and enjoyed yesterday's math lesson. So today is Thursday, March 19th, and we're going to get right into our math packet. You should have your math packet with you, you should have a pencil, and you should be in a space where you can focus. So the very first problem on your packet today says to find the sum of 758 and 386 using two different strategies. Now in your head right now, it's really important that you're thinking about what this word sum means. I'll give you a couple seconds to remember. Hopefully you remember that when you're finding the sum of two numbers, that means you're finding the total. So your job is to find the total of 758 and 386. Right now I'm going to pause and give you some time. You can also pause the video if you want to, and you're going to have some time right now to solve the problem. I'm going to do about 10 more seconds before we jump back in. Okay. So I know some of you will not be finished, so you can continue working on your strategy and feel free to pause the video. But some of you are finished. So your job is to solve with two different strategies. Now, when I'm thinking about the way my class always likes to solve, I'm assuming so many of you want to do the algorithm, and that's totally fine. Let's do the algorithm. So I would have to start with my biggest part, which is 758, and I would have to add 386 to it. I need to make sure that when I'm doing my algorithm, I line up my ones, my tens, and my hundreds. I'm going to move this closer so you can see it. So I first start with my ones. 8 plus 6. What's that? Hopefully you know it's 14. That means that I have 4 ones, and I have 10 ones that I have to regroup into the tens place. So now I have to add my tens. I have the one group of 10 right here that I regrouped, plus 5. 1 plus 5 is 6. And then I'm adding 8 more. 6 plus 8, well, I already figured that out here. That's 14. This represents 14 tens. So that's 4 tens, and then I have 10 tens that I have to regroup into the hundreds place. So now I have to add my hundreds. 1 plus 7 equals 8, and 3 more equals 11. So again, I'm going to have some more regrouping to do. 11 hundreds means that I have 100 left over, and I have to regroup my 10 groups of 100 into the thousands place, because 10 groups of 100 equals 1,000. 1 plus 0 equals 1. So there's our first strategy. Using the algorithm, we know that the sum is 1,144. But it's really important that we do a second strategy to prove our work, and this problem is also asking us to do a second strategy. One of those strategies you could do is the inverse. The inverse means, since I added here, I could do subtraction. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the algorithm, because the subtraction algorithm can be very difficult. So I'm going to start with my total, 1,144. And I am going to take away one of my parts. Let's take away 758, my biggest part. Now, when you're checking your work and using the inverse, you need to make sure that if you're starting with the total and you're taking away one of the parts, you need to get the other part that you know. That means that your part that's left over should be 386. If it is, that means you answered the problem correctly. And if it's not, that means that you made a mistake and that this number is actually not your total. So let's take a look here. This is subtraction. So automatically you should be thinking about the ones place because you're always going to start with the ones place. I'm going to give you a second right here to try using this algorithm. Some of you might have already done this for your second strategy, but I'm going to give us about 30 seconds to 40 seconds just to try using this algorithm, but then we'll go over it together. Okay, some of you might be finished, some of you might not. You can keep working and pause the video, or you can jump in here. So right here, I have to start with 4 and take away my 8 ones. But I can't take away a bigger number when my number is smaller. So I can't start with 4 and take away 8, so I have to regroup. This time regrouping means I need to get more, and I'm getting more ones. So I go into the tens place, and I have to regroup one of my tens, which means now I don't have 4, I have 3, and now instead of having 4 ones, I just regrouped a 10 to get more, so I have 14 ones. 14 minus 8, I know that from 14 minus 8 is a fact power fact. 14 minus 8 equals 6. Now I go into my tens place. I have 3 and I have to take away 5. I can't do that. I can't start with a smaller number and take away a bigger number. So now I have to get more tens. So I'm going to regroup from my hundreds. I'm regrouping my 100 here. So now I have 0 hundreds left. And instead of just having 3, I'm going to have 13 tens. I'm going to write that above it. It's a little squished, but hopefully you can see it. So now 13 minus 5, that's 8. So I have 8 tens. Now I have to go to my hundreds place. 0 minus 7. I can't do that. So that means that I need to regroup from my thousands place. So I'm regrouping my 1,000. I have 0 left. And now instead of having 0 groups of 100, I have 10. Because when I regroup one group of 1,000, I get 10 groups of 100 because 10 groups of 100 has the same value as 1,000. 10 minus 7 is 3, and now I have no thousands to take away. So my answer is 386. I know that I solved this correctly because 386 is the same part that I had to add in the first part of this problem. So the answer, 1,144, is the sum of these two numbers. Let's take a look at the second problem. This second problem is a bar graph. Now I'm just looking for my eraser here. Here it is. Now, the bar graph, something that is really important is we need to make sure that we read the title of the bar graph and label each of the bars. This is something we always do. It's a really great habit to get into, and it's something that we always do in my class. And I'm going to make sure that we zoom in a little bit here so that you can see the work that I'm going to be doing on the paper. Okay. So the very first thing, like I said, that we should be doing is reading the title. So pets in second grade. The next thing that I want you to take the next 10 or 15 seconds to do is label the value of dog, cat, hamster, and fish. That means label the bar at the top to figure out how many dogs there are, how many cats, how many hamsters, and how many fish. Go ahead. Okay. Taking a look at this bar graph, something I'm noticing is that every line actually represents 2, which means it's counting up by 2s. So this might have been a little challenging for some of you, so let's pay attention as we go through this. So if you look at the number at the dogs, the top of this bar goes right to the number 12. So that means that 12 people in 2nd grade have dogs as pets. All right, let's take a look at cats. This is the tricky one. Cats is between 2 numbers, 14 and 16. So it's not 14, it's not 16, it's 15, because 15 comes in between 14 and 16. And now we have hamsters, and again this number is between 2 lines, this bar, excuse me, is between 2 lines. So it's between 6 and 8, and so the number between 6 and 8 is 7. So that means 7 people have hamsters as a pet in 2nd grade. And the last bar is again between 2 lines. It's between 20 and 22. So that means there's 21 fish as there are 21 people that have fish as pets in 2nd grade. Awesome. Now that we just labeled this, our life is going to be so much easier to answer these questions. First question, how many more 2nd graders have fish for pets than hamsters? You should be thinking in your head right now, how do I solve this problem? How do I solve it? I know for me, I'm going to underline these important 3 words. How many more? And I'm thinking in my head, is that asking me to find the total number of fish and hamsters? Or is that asking me to find the difference between the number of fish and hamsters? Take a second to think about that. Now, hopefully, you know that when a question is asking you how many more, it's not asking you to find the total, but instead it's asking you to find the difference. So finding the difference means I have to subtract. So I have to take the number of hamsters and subtract, I have to take the number of hamsters and the number of fish and do some subtraction. So take a look at your bar graph and think about the number sentence. Think about that number sentence. I'm just going to move my paper over to give us more space. Hopefully you did 21 minus 7 equals something. 21 represents the number of people that have fish as pets, and 7 represents the number of people that have hamsters as pets. And so I'm always going to be starting with the bigger number when it comes to subtraction, and I'm finding the difference. Now, let's do that algorithm again as a strategy. Some of you, when you solve this, might be able to easily count back, but we can always practice the subtraction algorithm, which can be tricky. 1 minus 7. 1 is too small. I can't take away 7 from that, so I have to regroup to get more 1s. So I'm going to regroup one of my 10s, so now I'm left with just 1. And now instead of having 1 1, I have 11 1s. 11 minus 7, 4. 1 minus 0, 1. So my answer here is 14. And that represents the difference between people that have fish and hamsters for pets. Question number 3. How many students have dogs or fish? So just like we did on this last one, you really need to be thinking, is this question asking me to add numbers together, or is it asking me to subtract numbers together? Numbers from each other. Hopefully, you're realizing that you have to add your numbers together. Take a minute to think about the number sentence that you would use to solve this problem. How many students have dogs or fish? Your number sentence would be 21 plus 12 equals something. 21 represents the number of people that have fish as pets in 2nd grade, and 12 represents the number of people that have dogs. So I have to add these numbers together. I'm going to put this down here for a moment. Let's do a strategy we haven't done yet. Let's do expanded form. Remember, expanded form is when you break your numbers into expanded form. So 21 would become 20 plus 1, and 12 would become 10 plus 2. Take a second to solve the rest of this. Okay, hopefully you added your tens first. 20 plus 10 equals 30. 1 plus 2 equals 3. So 30 plus 3 equals 33. So that's your answer to question number 3. And the last question we have to solve for this bar graph is, how many students are in second grade? Well, thinking in your head, how would I figure that out using this information on my bar graph? What would you do? Hopefully, you're thinking that you have to add the total numbers of the people who have dogs, cats, hamsters, and fish as pets, because that represents the total number of students in second grade. So that would mean that I would do 12 plus 15 plus 7 plus 21 equals something. I know for me, in my class, we have talked a lot about how we're not going to add 4 numbers together because that means we could easily make mistakes. But instead, we're going to choose 2 numbers. And one thing that we always look for are numbers that could make a friendly 10. So for me to do that, I need to look at the ones digits. If I add any of these ones digits together, am I going to get a friendly 10? Hopefully you said no, because 2, 5, 7, and 1, none of those combinations would make a friendly 10, so you can just start with 2 numbers that you prefer. I'm going to do my 2 largest numbers first, 21 plus 15. Crossing those off in this problem so I don't get confused about the numbers I have added. 1 plus 5 equals 6, 2 plus 1 equals 3. Now I have to add my next 2 numbers, 12 and 7. Notice we're using this algorithm strategy a lot. It's a very quick strategy for these numbers that are small. 2 plus 7 is 9. 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay, so I added all 4 of my numbers and I got 36 and 19. So what do I do next? Because I haven't answered this problem yet. Hopefully, you know that you have to add these 2 numbers together. 36 plus 19. 6 plus 9. That can be a tricky fact, but 6 plus 9 is 15. And then I have 5 ones here, and I have to regroup my 10 ones to the tens place. 1 plus 3 is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So there is your answer. I want to take a second and just talk a little bit more about this number sentence. 36 plus 19. 36 plus 19. 19, I know, is really close to 20. If I add 1, I get to 20. So if I think about 36 plus 20, I know that's 36, 46, 56. And because I added 1 here to make 1920, I know that my answer is not really going to be 56. It's going to be 56 minus 1. And 56 minus 1 is 55, which is the answer I got. Thinking about your numbers in terms of friendly tens makes adding and subtracting just a little bit easier. So that's just another way you can push your thinking. Awesome. Now we're on to question number 5. What is the double of all of these numbers. So 28 doubled, 26 doubled, 29 doubled, 30 doubled, 27 doubled. Hopefully you remember that when you double a number, you add that number to itself. So that would mean for this first box, you're adding 28 and 28. And then you're adding 26 and 26 and 29 and 29 and 30 and 30 and 27 and 27. Why don't you go ahead and try to solve these problems by yourself, and we will go over the answers in about a minute. Okay, 28 plus 28 in my class, we always like to think about our tens and our ones. So 20 plus 20 is 40, and 8 plus 8 is 16. So when you put these numbers together, you get 56. This is one strategy you could have done if you were, as you were solving these problems. If that's a little bit challenging because it's a lot of mental math, you could also do the algorithm. So we just found out that 28 doubled is 56. Now we're going to do 26 doubled. Here's a second strategy you could have done. 6 plus 6, well, that's 12. 2 ones, regroup your 10 ones into the tens place. 1 plus 2 is 3, and 2 more make 5. So there you go, 52. Whichever strategies you prefer, when you're doubling numbers, we want you to increase your speed. And we want you to be able to do it as fast as you can, so you should use the strategy that works easiest for you. 29 doubled, that means 20 plus 20, which is 40. 9 plus 9 is 18. You put that together, you get 58. 30 doubled, probably the easiest for all of us. 30 and 30 make 60. And the last one, 27. 20 plus 20 is 40. 7 plus 7 is 14. So 40 and 14 equals 44. And that's wrong. See, teachers make mistakes too. 20 plus 20 is 40. And then 7 and 7 is 14. So instead of it being 44, I forgot to add the 10 in 14. It's actually 54. Awesome. Hopefully you got all 5 of those right. If you turn to the next page in your packet, my copy is a little bit faded, but here we have coins. And our job is to figure out the value of the coins. Now, this one we're going to actually do together because this one can be tricky. And oftentimes in my class when we do these, we get 5 different answers for the value of their coins. So it's important for us to remember our strategies, and counting coins really helps you skip count. So take a moment to think. You have quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies here. What should you start with? Hopefully, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you said that we should start with our quarters because they have the largest value. So I have 1 quarter right here. We know that's worth 25 cents. So I'm crossing it out and writing as I count, being really careful and neat about this. I have another quarter, so that's 25 more cents, which means I have 50. And then another quarter over here would make 75. Another quarter over here would make 100, which is $1. But remember, counting in cents is a little bit easier. And then one last quarter here, 125 cents. Remember, we're doing this together because it's important when you're counting coins that you take your time, you cross off each coin as you count it, and you write down what you're counting with. There are other strategies that we've learned in BC, and I'm sure in your other classes, but this is the one we're practicing together today because it's really important that you're being really organized as you do this. After our quarters, the next largest coin is our dime. Hopefully you knew that. Dimes are worth 10 cents. So I have 125 here. So I'm going to look for my dimes. I have one right here. I'm going to cross it off. My copy again is a little weird. So 125 plus 10 would be 135. I notice there's another dime right here. 10 more would be 145. I'm writing down each time. Oh, here's a dime right here. So 10 more would be 155. Over here, 10 more would be 165. 10 more, 175. I don't see any more dimes, but I do see nickels and pennies. So we're going to switch and count our nickels. Looks like I only have 2 nickels. One of them is right here. 5 more than 175 is 180. And 5 more with this nickel over here is 185. I'm not done yet. This is taking some time, but I have to count my pennies. Pennies have a value of 1. I hope that's what you were thinking, 1 cent. So 185 plus 1 is 186. Plus 1 is 187. Plus 1 is 188. Plus 1 is 189. I'm going to take a look at my coins, and it looks like I didn't miss any. So that my answer now is 189. But I have to include the cent sign as my label. Another way you could write 189 cents is you could write $1.89. That's the second way that you can do it. Either way is perfectly fine. Awesome. This next problem is a doozy. It says, which of these, oops, and you can't see it. Let me zoom out. Which of these is not a way to write 917? Circle not. Questions like this can be confusing to understand. In this problem, we have to find the way that does not equal 917. And we have 4 choices, A, B, C, and D. Right now, you can pause the video, or you can, I'm going to give you some wait time and some work time. And what I want you to do is I want you to figure out the value of A, B, C, and D. You can use this by drawing out those base 10 blocks. You can use this, you can do this by drawing out your base 10 blocks, or you can do this by using some mental math and writing down the values of each chunk of these numbers. Okay, I'm going to give us about 2 minutes to do this. Take another like 15 seconds. Awesome. We're going to pause there. Most of you probably had a chance to finish, some of you didn't, but that's okay. We're going to jump in. Hopefully, you figured out that there's only one of these ways that is not 917, and that way is C. But we need to prove that. And so we're going to go through each of these step by step. So as you can see here on my board, I wrote out these values. So 9 hundreds, 1 10, and 7 ones. You can definitely draw your base 10 blocks for this, but instead for me, I'm going to be doing more mental math. That's something in BC we work on a lot. 9 hundreds, 9 groups of 100, that means that has a value of 900. 110, that has a value of 10, and 7 ones has a value of 7. This is a number in expanded form, and when you put it together in standard form, you get 917. So that actually equals 917, so I'm going to cross this off because that's not what I'm looking for. B, 700s. Using that same mental math strategy, 700s has a value of 700. But 21 tens is tricky. 21 tens actually is talking about, and I'm going to separate it here, 20 tens plus 1 10. 20 tens. I know that 10 tens has a value of 100, so 20 tens has a value of 200. And then one more group of 10 has a value of 10. Now I have 7 ones. So I have 4 numbers that I have to add together. If I bring down the 700, I have 700 plus 200 plus 10 plus 7. 700 and 200 equals 900. 900 plus 10 plus 7. That's the same number in expanded form that we did up here. That equals 917. That's the same as 917. It's not what we're looking for. So when I come down here for part C, 800s I know has a value of 800. And then I'm adding 17 tens. Well, 17 tens means 10 tens and 7 tens. We know that 10 groups of 10 equals 100 and 7 tens equals 70. So now I have 800 plus 100 plus 70. 800 and 100 make 900 plus 70. Well, that equals 970, which is different from 917, which is why this one is right. But if you got to this point and said, I'm done, I found the right answer, nope. You have to check all of them because sometimes us teachers like to trick you. Sometimes all of your answers will be wrong. Sometimes one of them will be right. Sometimes 2 of them will be right. So it's important that you do all of the work. So for this last one, 800s we know has a value of 800. 10 tens we know over here has a value of 100. And 17 ones means you have 10 ones and 7 ones, so that equals 17. When you add 800 and 100, you get 900. And then 17 more would give you 917, which is which is not different from 917. They're the same, so D is not right. So the only answer is C. We have just done a ton of math work and we have one more problem left. So take a second right now and read that problem to yourself. In this problem, there is a word, fewer. What's another word for fewer? Even in math, you have to really understand what these words mean to understand the word problem. Hopefully, you know fewer means less. So if you were getting stuck with this problem, you can change that word fewer to less to make it make more sense. So there were 145 less birds on the beach on Tuesday than on Wednesday. So I'm thinking in my head, that means that there were more on Wednesday. there were 262 birds at the beach on Wednesday. How many birds were at the beach on Tuesday? So what do you think we need to do to solve this problem? Should we add 145 and 262, or should we subtract these numbers? Hopefully, you're realizing that we have to subtract because we know that there were less birds on Tuesday than on Wednesday. So that means that Wednesday had a bigger number of birds, which means we have to take 262 and subtract 145 from it to figure out the number of birds that were at the beach on Tuesday. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds or so to choose the strategy that you want to solve this problem. Okay, so we've been doing a ton of algorithms, so we're going to end with a different strategy. We are going to end with a number line. Now, I don't think many of your students probably used a number line to solve because sometimes it's a little bit trickier and the algorithm is a favorite strategy, but I just want to show parents and show students this as well. When I'm doing a number line, I'm always starting with my total on the right hand side because that means I'm counting backwards. With subtraction, I'm counting backwards. So I'm going to start with 262. I'm going to take away my ones first. I have 5 ones that I'm going to take away, so I'm going to make a jump back of 5. 262 minus 5. That equals, and you can do this in your head, 257. Now I've taken away my ones, I'm going to take away my tens. I'm going to take away a jump of 40 because 4 tens has a value of 40. Now you can take away 4 tens or you can make one big jump. It's really your preference. 257 minus 40, well, 257, 247, 237, 227, 217. So that's my answer here. And then I have to take away my group of 100. 217 minus 100 equals 117. So there were 117 birds at the beach on Tuesday with a capital T. Awesome. That was a lot of hard math work that you did today. I hope the pausing was more helpful for you this time around. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me or to your particular teacher. Parents, you can also email us if you have any questions or any feedback. Awesome. Have a great rest of your day.